Into Monday Night Mystery. We are on the search for answers tonight. Barry Gene Harmon Sr. is missing. The Arkansan, an experienced hunter, went squirrel hunting but never returned. Speculation growing. Is a wild animal responsible or foul play like his family suspects? We're going inside the investigation tonight because there are truly so many different answers, and we are excited to have the Drew County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy on our show tonight discussing the case. Good evening and thank you for joining us on Monday Night Mystery. I am Mitch McCoy. Thank you for joining us. There is a lot to get to here tonight, but I first want to welcome in our viewers joining us on KARK.com, Fox16.com, and across all of our digital platforms. We have somewhat of a smaller panel tonight, but it is a panel with a wealth of knowledge and information. We have Kara Boyd, a defense attorney, former prosecutor, joining us tonight. Kara, thank you so much. And special guest, Deputy Chief Brian Slaughter with the Drew County Sheriff's Office. His agency responsible for investigating the disappearance of Gene Harmon. I want to begin with Kara. Kara, go over our case details for us tonight.
Thanks, Mitch. From what we know, Barry Harmon Sr., he was reported missing in January of 2015, the 5th of 2015, and he went squirrel hunting behind his home around 1 p.m. that day. But unfortunately, his family has not heard from him, and he did not return that day. And that is all we know from right now. That's all the information that Drew County has been able to determine on his whereabouts.
And because it is still one of those, it's an ongoing active investigation, I want to get to special guest Brian Slaughter, Chief Deputy at the Drew County Sheriff's Office. Chief, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it from Drew County. Kind of update us on where the investigation stands tonight.
Well, it's still an active investigation. We still follow up when we receive new leads. Of course, it's been since 2015, so it has grown into a cold case. But when we get any new information, new leads, or anything that we can do, then we follow those up until they either have a dead end, which most of them have, so up to today, or until we find out further information on it.
Well, and we know that you guys are doing everything that you can reasonably to try and bring some kind of closure to the family. I want to welcome in our viewers just joining us here tonight. We are streaming live on KARK.com, Fox16.com, across all of our digital platforms. You see the hashtag right here, hashtag Monday Night Mystery. If you have a question for the Chief Deputy at the Drew County Sheriff's Office, just use that hashtag. Or if you have a question for Kara, you can also use that hashtag Monday Night Mystery. Chief, I want to get back to you. So walk us through the first couple of days after Barry didn't return home.
Well, the first day he come up missing, and now this has been several years, so I'm going to be probably off a little bit on the times, but I think it was around 1 p.m. is when we were told that he walked off. At some point he came back home and traded guns. The one he had was had dirt or got dirt or something in the barrel, and it actually malfunctioned and blew the barrel out. The family did tell us at the time there were signs of intoxication, that he seemed to be impaired, but they didn't know for why. And then he never returned from that second time. So by the time the sheriff's office was notified, it was dark. This was in January. It was exceptionally cold up there when we were searching. But we didn't actually get a search team. We sent officers up that night. We started our investigation, started the reports that night. But we didn't actually get boots on the ground to do an extensive search until that next morning. As you know, it's very dangerous to search in the dark in those woods. It's a very isolated, wooded area.
Well,
so we try not to
Drew
search
County
at night if possible, because it's dangerous to search at night. So
Yeah, especially in Drew County, where, and let's just face it, there has been some speculation regarding a possible wild animal attack. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, Chief, who was the last person to see Barry alive?
It was hit both his parents, his mom and his dad saw him as he they even showed us, he walked out toward this area, and it was a very wooded area there. So they were the last two to see him alive and to see him walk out, and hasn't been seen since.
Kara, I want to get to you. Kara Boyd is former prosecutor turned defense attorney. Kara, why is it so important that the Drew County Sheriff's Office get the testimony from Barry's parents, who we now know are the last people to see him alive?
Well, those are timeline witnesses. Those witnesses will kind of box in the window of time that a person that is missing or maybe deceased, that the law enforcement can look and determine where were these individuals at the moment they were gone missing. They can, investigate and build on those leads. So those are your key witnesses to build a case upon. So his parents, being the last persons to have seen him, can say what he was wearing, whether he had any conditions, medical or physical, where he was anticipated to be the rest of the night. I mean, those last witnesses that made contact with him just set the tone for the investigation.
And as we are welcoming our viewers in on our mobile phone apps and on Facebook, also on Twitter, we are talking about Barry Harmon Sr. He went squirrel hunting in January of 2015 in Drew County, Arkansas, and he never returned home. This has been, at least the area where he was hunting, has been a center point for search and rescue operations in the days after his disappearance. Chief, walk me through the process of the search. Was this a grid search operation that you had?
Yeah, we started our search in the close vicinity. We knew he was on foot. We knew it was a very deep wooded area, and the direction that his parents told us he left was no roads or anything else from that direction. So we knew it was a wooded search. So we did start a grid search, and we had help. It wasn't just the sheriff's department and our employees, which it was. All of our people were hands on at that time, but we also had help from Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and the Arkansas State Police, and we even at one point had the Arkansas State Police had a helicopter down there looking for him. So the very first night, when our deputies first went up there, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's very dangerous to do a search at night. So what we did is we got close to the house. What one road that is close to that, it's not, I wouldn't call it close, but we set up on those roads, and then we blew sirens. We got on loudspeakers. We, thinking maybe it's dark. He got lost. So that's what we did the first night. Now that second night,
walk me through your reasoning behind that. Is that so that way he knew where to walk if he had gotten lost in the woods? Okay.
Yeah. Well, our first thought was he had just gotten, it got dark on him, and that he just got lost up in those woods. So we thought we could run our sirens, get on our loudspeakers, turn our lights on, and he could hear that in those woods, and he would come back out. That was our first thought at the very first of the night, and that's what our deputies did. Now, on the next day when we started the grid search, of course, it was boots on the ground, and we were out in those woods actually searching. So.
And that's also because he's an experienced hunter, we're told?
Yeah, that's what we were told too.
Okay. Okay, so for folks just joining us here online, you can use the hashtag Monday Night Mystery, and we can try and get some of your questions answered. We have a question coming in right now. Cindy, using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery, were search dogs ever used? Chief, can you answer that for us?
No, on the initial search, the next day when we did contact the Arkansas Department of Correction, and when we do a search, we use, on an immediate search, we use ADC's Arkansas Department of Correction and their search dogs, so they have a outstanding team, probably one of the best in the nation as far as search dogs. But what had happened, his family and others had already been in the area. So ADC told us, which already that many people already being in the area, the dogs are trained to pick up on human scent. And with that many people already being in there, they would have just tracked the searchers. They wouldn't have done us any good at that point. So no,
the dogs would the sense would not have been clear enough.
Right. They would have tracked back who had already been in the woods, the family, some more searchers prior to us getting there the next morning. They went out, that night against our advice, of course, but they went out. And then, so ADC told us because there were so many people already in the woods that the dogs would have just tracked back to the searchers. It would have been a waste of time. So we didn't bring dogs out that day. So that night.
Have you brought dogs out since?
Yes, we brought cadaver dogs out since. Now this was year to the date, may have been 2 years. Again, I'm gonna be bad on the dates,
of course,
but we did at one point. We did go up there with cadaver dogs, and we searched. Again, we were up there almost a week with cadaver dogs looking, and it was a very large grid that we searched with those dogs. But we did bring dogs in later, not at initial though.
For folks just joining us here tonight, we're talking about Barry Harmon Sr. He was 35 years old when he went missing in Drew County, Arkansas, while he was hunting. He was squirrel hunting, and he never returned home. And the Drew County Sheriff's Office is joining us here live tonight, answering some of your questions. As a family still searches for him, Barry. They haven't been able to find him yet. Let me just take a step back, and I know we were talking a little bit about the cadaver dogs, but I want to take just a couple steps back. How many days did you spend searching for Barry?
18, 21 days. It was a lot. We were up there every day. From the day after he come up missing until it was almost 21 days, 22 days, something like that. But it was a long time, and we from that time it started to the end, we kept somebody up there even at night. Now again, it's just too dangerous to search at night, so we wasn't in those woods at night, but we had someone up there the entire time. And I was thinking it was close to 21 days, maybe been closer to 23 days, but it was a while. We were up there at least over 20 days.
At what point did you have in your mind that this could turn from a search and rescue to a search and recovery?
Usually after 24, 48 hours and you've got nothing, you start losing hope. So, after that first day, the second day, definitely when you get into third, the fourth, the fifth day, you're really on a recovery now. Those are not things you want to tell family at the time you are searching. You don't want to give a false hope,
Right.
But usually after 24, 48 hours, it's a recovery. It's not a rescue anymore.
I want to turn to Kara Boyd, defense attorney and former prosecutor. Kara, walk me through what Drew County's operation was from a prosecutor standpoint. Let's say there is foul play involved. You have numerous people out in a search and rescue. Walk me through that mindset from a prosecutor, because we also know that Drew County had a priority to protect evidence if evidence needed to be collected.
Absolutely. So the first, piece of evidence obviously is that missing person report. Once the case is opened, that initial incident report will be what we would use as prosecutors to kind of follow, like I said, the timeline. From there, those individual witnesses would be interviewed by detectives. So anybody that would have information, his parents, any friends, relatives, employees that he had last contact with, those witnesses would be brought in for interview. And those would be material witnesses to establish who was with him at the time, who could say, if there was some animus, some motivation or bias, or any type of modus operandi is what we call it, to, be responsible for his disappearance, we want to, vet those persons closest to him first. So the incident report, witness interviews, and then from there you'll have the detective's investigative report. So that investigative report will be a summation of what evidence they collected. Once you move from the interviews and the reports, you then go into forensic evidence. So once you conduct the search, as Chief talked about, if you were able to collect any pieces of evidence on that search. So Arkansas Crime Lab and their forensics, or if Drew County has their own analysts and crime lab analysts, they would go out, follow that grid that she talked about, and collect that evidence, and you would bag and tag it, is what we call it, and seal it, and send it off for analyzing at the Arkansas Crime Lab. Hopefully that evidence will reveal who a suspect is, if there's any DNA or trace evidence of Mr. Harmon, anything that can link who is responsible for Mr. Harmon's disappearance and Mr. Harmon. So we want to look for any correlation in those pieces of evidence. We want to look at the tracking, if there are any footprints, any animal, marks or prints or trackings that would suggest that this is not a foul play or any type of homicide, but this is maybe just a natural cause or unfortunate incidents that led to his disappearance. So all of those pieces of evidence would be what a prosecutor would be looking at and analyzing to determine, is this person responsible that we may have charged for this cause of death, or is this something that was due to natural causes, the natural elements, and so that would lead to the conclusion of this trial.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about Barry Harmon Sr. He went missing in 2015. He was squirrel hunting when he never returned home. I want to get to some questions that are coming in online, and I'm thankful for this next question because it's in the direction I was headed, Chief. The question is from Christy, using the hashtag Monday Night Mystery. Were any personal property found? Clothes, hat, a phone, etc., anything? And Chief, before you answer that, I want to pull up an article that I had read. They actually found his vest that he went hunting in a later search.
We did. I want to say it was months later, after our initial 23 days. Several months later, the family called us and said they had found a vest. So we went back up there. Now, that initial search, I think it was a couple, 2 or 3 days in, we found a pack of cigarettes that was unopened. That was his brand of cigarettes that he would have smoked. And we found some shotgun shells that matched the brand and the caliber of gun that he supposedly went with him when he had. And we found those laying on the ground.
Wait. So you said one of them was spent?
No. They were live shell. I mean, they were unshot shotgun shells. Okay. I want to think it was 2 of them laying on the ground beside that pack of cigarettes. So they hadn't been fired. No. And we found those, and those were the same caliber, the same brand name of shotgun shells that the family said he had with him. So we found those on during the initial search, a couple, 2 or 3 days in. Now that vest was found, and it was found months later. I don't know how many, but it was at least a month after our initial search, and it wasn't in the location that we found the cigarettes or the shotgun shells. They were found together.
What does that mean for you? I mean, if you're looking at this and you have a missing person, you have a unopened pack of cigarettes, if I'm hearing you correctly, you have shell casings or bullets that had not been fired, and a vest found in a completely different location. What's going through your mind as the chief deputy?
Well, when we found when the cigarettes and the shotgun shells were found, of course, when we send searchers out there and it's volunteer, not law enforcement, we tell them, don't touch anything. If you find something, we give them our phone numbers, we give them our location, and we usually try to keep a deputy close to a search group, but we tell them, if you find something, don't touch it. Call us, call law enforcement, let us come out there. As the counselor was telling us earlier,
And pause real quick, Chief. Kara, that's because it's so important to preserve evidence. That's what the chief's saying.
Absolutely. You want to make sure that there's no contamination of whatever these analysts or detectives collect, because that could compromise an investigation. That can compromise a potential suspect. So if there are items found out where he was last found or seen, you want to make sure that is not touched, that it's uncontaminated, that no one can say that there's any doubt on who is responsible or who touched this, or that this is related or connected to Mr. Harmon.
Okay, sorry, Chief, go ahead.
Yeah, and the counselor is absolutely right, and that's why we tell people, if you discover anything that you think might be relevant to this search, don't touch it. Contact us. Now, this back to the cigarettes and the shotgun shells. The way they were found, it looked as if we assume maybe he sat down next to a tree. They may have been in his pocket, and maybe just fell out of his pocket there as he was getting up, moving from one location to another. That's what it looked as if, because they were really in close proximity and they were close to the edge of a tree. So it looked and I'm a hunter myself, so is the sheriff, so is a lot of our deputies, and that's what it looked like. He had sat down next to that tree during his hunting or whatever, and he got up to move on to another location. He dropped those items and didn't realize it. So.
Was there anything suspicious in that area where the shotgun shells were and the unopened pack of cigarettes?
No, nothing. Nothing jumped out that would have said, that were just, other than that, it looked as if he had sat down on the ground next to that tree. He kind of used the tree as a back to lean up against, and as he stood up to move to a different location, maybe that fell out of his pocket. That's exactly what we all assumed when we said it, but nothing jumped out. Nothing. His family identified that those were the same type shells he had, and that is the brand of cigarettes that he smoked.
So you say that the shotgun shells were there. What about his shotgun?
We recovered the first shotgun because when he went hunting when he left the first time, his family said that he seemed to be impaired. He did come back. And that first shotgun that he left with was damaged. It looked like he had pulled the trigger. Maybe it had dirt in the barrel because it damaged the barrel. He left that gun and got another one. But the second gun, no, we haven't. We don't know where it's at. We haven't recovered.
The second gun you have not recovered.
No, we never found the second gun.
But
this was the last time he was seen. So he left once, came back, swapped guns, and then when he left that second time, he never came back. And the gun he had when he left the second time is still out in those woods somewhere. We haven't found it.
Interesting. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about the vest that you found. And Kara, I know what you're thinking. Was there any evidence found on that vest? Blood, anything?
No, there was nothing. It was even speculated by me more so than anybody else that I didn't think that was the vest that he had. It didn't look like a hunting vest. It looked more like a industrial type safety vest. So I even speculated that it wasn't even his vest. Now I do believe the family said that it was, but
are there any photographs or anything of him in something similar?
No, we didn't have any photos of him and anything like that.
And I know the Drew County Sheriff's Office that was probably one of the first few questions you guys asked. If you guys are just joining us tonight, we are talking about Barry Harmon Sr. He went missing in 2015, went squirrel hunting. We're now learning from the chief that they found a vest. This was maybe possibly months after the original search for him in January of 2015. They found an unopened pack of Barry cigarettes, and there were some shotgun shells near a hunting site. Chief, do you think that if you find the gun, you might be able to put more pieces to the puzzle? Because let me be frank with you, it honestly sounds like Barry Harmon Sr. vanished.
Yeah, he did. I'm confident if we find that gun, we're going to find the remains of Mr. Harmon. Quite confident that's going to happen.
You're saying if you find the gun, you think you'll find his remains?
I do, yeah. If we find the gun, we're going to find him. I think they're still together. I think they're still in those woods. You need to understand that this was January. It was bitterly cold out there. When we were searching during the daytime, the temperatures never got out of the teens several of those days. So it was really, really brutally cold up there. You can imagine what happened at nighttime. We're talking about the temperatures, how they would have fallen off. And the only thing he had on was was his hunting clothes. You know, he wasn't dressed for the temperature drop that would have happened during this. Also during this time, the weather was terrible. It rained, flash flood type rains during this, along with the brutally cold temperatures. So there's the creek bottoms that run through those woods. Those creeks flash flooded. They come up pretty quick, you know.
Right.
So a lot could have happened. But you asked, and I personally feel like if we find that gun, we're going to find the remains of Mr. Harmon. I feel like they're still together.
Well, Kara and I were part. When we talk about shows in advance, there was some speculation that maybe he was attacked by a wild animal. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think he was possibly attacked by a wild animal. Now there are bears in that area that we know for a fact. There are wild hogs in that area that we know of that are up there. And could he had succumbed to his intoxication or the elements? So could he have succumbed to that? And then the wild the animals, the bears, the coyotes, the hogs, would they have done something with the body? Absolutely, they would have. The wild animals would have fed on a dead body if he had succumbed to the elements or to his intoxication. Yeah, I think that's come in. But was he attacked by an animal? I don't feel like he was attacked.
What about foul play?
Can't rule it out. We would never rule it out. Not until we had those remains to check foul play. Even the bones, we would tell if something happened, and then we would go from there. But no, it's not ruled out. You can't rule it out. You could talk to the counselor, but you cannot rule out foul play until you have all the information, all the facts, and we don't have the facts. So.
Yeah, Carl, what do you think about all this? I mean, this is probably one of the most bizarre Monday Night Mysteries we've ever done.
Yes. The fact that there are no leads is just incredible. I mean, it's like you said, it's almost like he disappeared. I mean, the first thing, if I were, investigating, talk to the family, is there any reason why there would be any issue or discourse amongst the family members, because you've got this wide land in the back. You've got, all these possibilities of how you can, discard a body. And, there's nothing there to suggest that there's foul play. So, I mean, that is definitely going to be a course of thought of any investigator. I think that is there some kind of issue in the family, and whether they have reason to cause him any harm. because you have this wide field of property that goes for miles, and he's nowhere to be found. And so that, I mean, it is amazing that no one knows where he is. His property hasn't been found. His gun hasn't been found. And there's no leads. It's just unfortunate for those that really love him.
Want to, as we wrap up here, I have a quick question for the chief. Chief, you mentioned that if, in your belief, if you find the gun, you may find his remains.
Yes.
Have you guys considered another cadaver dog search?
Yeah, it's been talked about, running those dogs back to those areas again. And it was in the plans, and COVID got in everybody's way. So it was actually planned for that. And after COVID, which is, we're getting close to being after that, there will be another search done, another cadaver dog search done. But as a wrote in stone date on it, no, I don't have one yet. But
it is being planned.
Yes, it'll happen. I just don't know when it's going to happen. But yeah, we'll run them back up there again. We'll do it again. And this case will remain open with our department. I'll tell you, with the sheriff's department, we don't go a week, and we have a lot of criminal cases, as anybody else does. When we're a small rural county, but we still have criminal cases that we look into. But there's not a week goes by that we don't mention, look at, do something with Barry that he's not talked about. So this is still a ongoing investigation. It's still something that we're looking into, and we're trying to, we want to know where Barry is as much as anybody else does at this point.
All right. Deputy Chief Brian Slaughter with the Drew County Sheriff's Office, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it, and thank you for helping us give context to this case in so many different ways. Cara Boyd, thank you, my friend, for joining us tonight. Everyone else is on assignment, doing their own things with the respective agencies they work for. So I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
I was glad to be here.
Thank you. If you guys have any information about what happened to Barry Harmon Sr. from Drew County, Arkansas, you are asked to call the Drew County Sheriff's Office or call your local law enforcement agency. Again, he was reported missing January 5th. He went squirrel hunting around 1 p.m. and he never returned home. Thank you for joining us tonight on Monday Night Mystery. We're back next Monday with a new mystery at 7 p.m. on the device that you're watching. For now, I'm Mitch McCoy. Have a good rest of your night.